Welcome to the Vybe podcast. Our mission is to provide the platform where unique voices can be heard.
We aim to build a community of support through music and other art forms.
If you enjoy the content we make, be sure to hit the follow button.
By supporting, you're helping us bring better content to you.
Much love.
But I'm looking at either working in the school system for a little bit before becoming a counselor, but I would like to counsel kids who have been through the system specifically. I want to deal with kids in foster care, and I don't want to be their social worker, but I want to be a counselor because I never had a counselor.
Right.
I never had a proper... I was brought to
There's
a
more than
psychologist.
enough social workers, in my opinion.
Right?
Yeah.
There was...
And they barely, to them, it's a job. It's not for you. It's something you put, like I said,
It's
I
a
work.
passion.
Sorry to cut you off, but I work in an after school program, right? And I see all this teachers and all the social workers coming up to buddies are you doing okay? Are you having a bad day? Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's in their mind, you're like, oh, I'm being helpful, good for me. You know what I mean? But it's to me, it comes off so presumptuous. You know what I mean? So fake. You know what I mean? It comes off oh, I'm just doing the bare minimum, you know what I mean? And then
And
the kid talk, and yes, and the kids feel that, you know what I mean? They feel that energy. It's different from if you actually sit down to someone, get on their level, and be like, hey, how you doing today? That's different. But if you walking by and be like, oh, you crying? Are you okay? No, that, you know what I mean? And I see that every day, bro. I see that every day with teachers, with social workers, you know what I mean? I have kids who tell me, my social workers don't care about me, you know what I mean? I don't have a computer at home. Really, that's crazy. Do you have a library card? They're like, you get a library card? Do I have to pay for that? I'm like, bro.
My social workers never taught me anything.
You know what I mean?
Why aren't they teaching them?
You know what I mean? They don't care. You know what I mean? You're taking them from a neglected parents to neglectful social workers.
That
You know what I
has
mean?
too many cases.
They don't care. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it's almost it gives the effect of having 30 kids in a classroom, you know what I mean? No one actually gets specific help, you know what I mean? Because you're too busy focusing on everyone, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, any adult who is working with a big group of kids in either a teacher capacity, a tutor, a social worker, daycare worker, they know that every kid is different. Every kid is coming with their own stuff.
Yeah.
And now you're dealing with all these different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And if you're a social worker that has a lot of cases, you don't necessarily have time to get to know. And it's not always your fault. But I was I want to come from a psych point of view. I want to bring that. And so I want to make it clear to help people you don't have to have a degree. Don't buy the lie. Don't buy the lie that you need a degree.
Anyone can help people. Yeah.
But I wanted the degree.
Exactly.
I wanted to hear case studies. I wanted to hear other people's stories. And I wanted to try to understand myself because like I said, my mom did illicit drugs and drank alcohol. So that affected my development. So I struggled. I had learning disabilities I didn't know about. I'm undiagnosed ADHD, absolutely. I believe I'm a little bit fetal alcohol. And so I had struggles, and there were not enough people to help me. And in my education, the educators also failed because you can get assessed for learning disabilities in schools.
Facts.
In Canada.
Cheaper.
So
Free.
it's cheaper for parents if you're listening and you're a parent and you're worried your child has something.
Yep.
You can talk to the schools.
Yep.
Schools can get you assessed for free. And then there's, with different diagnoses, there's different supports and different funding. A lot of this is still new because people are still trying to understand it. But I wanted to be, you can have a psychologist that's there for money, or you can have one that's there to help. So what happened to me was I saw a psychologist when I was a child, and the psychologist made me play with puppets to see if I was being abused. And you would think that this person would want to help the child, right? They want to save the child. But they were getting paid. It's a job.
Right.
So what they did was they manipulated me because I was 3 or 4, and they wrote down in my file that I showed no symptoms of abuse. But yeah, I had nightmares. I had trauma. I would not sleep at night. I would scream for no reason. I had all these behavior issues. There were clear signs.
Right.
I had marks on my body, but nobody would step in for me. Nobody. There was no teacher. There was no EA. There was nothing that...
Yeah.
No one helped me, and it was so obvious. And I was in, a mildly abusive situation when it comes to abuse. There's different types.
Right.
Not to say that anyone's is
Worse.
quote unquote worse
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
better,
it's
but I was like living. I wasn't hospitalized or anything like that. It's not a struggle Olympics. Yeah. So my abuse only ended up affecting me years later. So like my adopted parents would tell me like I never slept. So they would put me, we laugh about it now, but they would make me sit in front of the wall for like hours at night because I would want to play in my room and they're adults and they want to sleep. But I couldn't sleep because if I went to sleep, I had nightmares and I had memories. And I didn't know what was happening to me. And I didn't know if it was real, if it was a real memory or a fake memory. So that's what triggered my psychology interests.
That's so that you say that because like I can relate on so many levels.
Right? You're like, is this a repressed memory? Is it my brain making up something?
Right.
Is because the thing is with memory formation, we think that our brains and our memories are accurate, but every time that you recall a memory, every single time that same memory gets recalled, there's little edits that happen. Little, you know? Yeah. So I wanted to go into psychology to understand what happened to me. Yeah. Because I knew that what was being written down on paper was not reality. There was lies, there was misinformation. Right. I would talk to my adoptive parents about like what they had been told versus what had actually happened, and it took me years to tell them the truth and to earn that trust. Right. But I think through studying psychology and through going through counseling while I was in my psych degree, most universities will make that a requirement that you go through counseling. Right. The U of M doesn't. But I obviously knew I needed it. Yeah. So I lucked out with a great counselor, the psychologist at the U of M. Yeah. She's awesome. I don't know if she'd like me to shout her out, so I won't, but she's amazing. And if you're a student at the U of M, counseling comes with your tuition, so I encourage students to take advantage of it. She helped me work through years of trauma, and she would help me talk to my adoptive parents about it. So she would offer sessions with them involved, or she would tell me what I could take home to them. And so then we could work through the process together, like as a family.
That's good. Like, I'm glad that there's some good thing. Like, the first thing I wanted to say was it astonishes me how many failings there are in the system. But then when you say things like that, it's like there's good things in the system too. It's about how you look at it. And somebody that went through the same stuff as you could have, turned out way worse, so to speak.
Typically they do.
Right, not just for lack of a better phrasing, but yeah, it's fascinating. I'm really processing what you're saying, so it's a little bit... There's a lot.
Yeah, sorry, I realize that I process it, but when I talk about it, I'm like, I can be casual, but I can dump it.
It's good, actually.
I want to dive in on so many points, but we have so many things to get onto. Like, I'm trying to... But first off, I'm gonna say this.
It amazes me how comfortable you can talk about it.
Yes.
I try.
That is immense growth, you know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
Because your story has power. Everybody's story has power.
And that's the same thing that we think about in songwriting.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of why we did this. That's the purpose of why we did this podcast. Yeah. You know what I mean, right? It's like we are content creators. We got sick and tired of seeing nonsense content online, you know what I mean? And we realize that actually we play a part in it because we make content, right? Like from the music we make, from the posts we do on social media, from this, you know what I mean? It's like, what kind of content do we want to make? Do we want to have a space where people could have regular conversations, you know what I mean? Or do we want to have a space where everyone is like politically charged, you know what I mean, walking on eggshells? It's like, nah, bro, like, it's so powerful, sharing like, there's so much power in one, representation, knowing there are other people like you, and two, there's so much power in acknowledgement, like saying out loud, like, this is my issue, like this.
Owning it.
Yes, like I feel like in North America they push the narrative of like you're like becoming your label, but it's like, no, that's not the point of labels. Labels like so you know what the problem is. Like if I know what my problem is, if I know my enemy, then I can attack my enemy. You know what I mean?
Fix it,
right? That's one of the laws of power. You know what I mean? Like man, what's the name of that book?
Laws of Power?
No, The Art of War. Okay. The Art of War. Like beautiful book. It's a beautiful book. You know what I mean? And it talks like when you can name your enemy, right? Then you can learn about your enemy. You could learn how to defend yourself by your enemy. You can learn how to attack enemy. You can learn your strength and your weakness. So that for me, that's the power of a label. When you have a label, you're like, okay, I have ADHD. Now I could do research. You know what I mean? How could I help my brain function better? How could I help myself be more efficient? How could I help myself be more productive? Not I have ADHD, so then I suck. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, like you don't get stuck in the stigma.
Yeah,
you can see and like
don't victimize yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, and
you can get stuck in your own definitions.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then the third thing I wanted to say is that yeah, I think it's very powerful to like say that out loud. It's like, especially about like the testing, you know, giving out that information. Like for me, right, I try to get diagnosed, right? I try to go through a neurological exam, and I was quoted $1,700. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's a lot.
1,700. You know what I mean? I'm like, bro, what?
Like who just has that laying around?
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if I really, 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 really wanted to, I'd do it. But that means, you know, I'm like dipping into my savings. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like choosing to do this, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's the difference between like paying my rent and like I'm just
right, like oh my word,
right? That's rent money right there. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, who has that lying around, especially the people that need it the most?
Yeah.
And like trauma is free, so why aren't these like diagnoses and why isn't help free? Like in Canada, we are an industrious society. We are a place where we could offer free counseling and free mental health help to all Canadian citizens.
Right.
And we could do it in a way where the people who are in it could still make money, but they could still make a difference.
See, and I feel
that's what I want to do.
I love this right here because now I feel like we're pivoting towards like politics and policies, and that is great because like, in my opinion, like that is something I would get behind that. You know what I mean? If the Liberals, if the NDPs were like, yo, we, you know, because like the NDP, they just did free healthcare, right? And then they did they did free dental care, right? And then they did what was it?
How do I get that?
Yeah, you can. I'm pretty sure if you talk to someone like there's free dental care started in like September.
I was quoted
last year.
$4,000 in dental fees.
That's
and
then there's also like birth control, free birth control as well. That's the NDP passed that last September, right? But it's like if the NDP, if like politicians are like, yo, you know, we're gonna give like free like psychological exams to Canadians, bro. I'm behind that bill. You know what I mean?
So many people would jump on that.
I'm behind that. You know what I mean? But I feel like, you know, like as a society, we don't demand enough for like our politicians, and we let like the politicians like we let them kind of like give us the narrative of what like the issues and the problems should be instead of us giving them what our issues and our problems should be. You know what I mean, right? And I hate that. Like our politics is so backwards. You know what I mean? And I hate that. You know what I mean? And it's not just a North American thing. It's globally. Like democracy as we know it is bull.
Well, that's why
I stand on that. I double down on that. I triple down on it.
Well, absolutely. But it's because when you said like earlier about talking about like why did you get into psychology and like what brought you there, it was because I knew that if I became a social worker or I became a counselor for specifically child and family services, I would have to abide by the way that they do things. And if I think that they're corrupt, my best way of bringing change isn't to join their corrupt system. It's to come onto platforms like what you content creators have created and like through podcasts, through TikTok, through Instagram, through these people like coming together as a collective and being like, mental health issues are so much more. It's about socioeconomic status. It's about poverty. It's about all these things. Like
it's not one-sided.
It's not one-sided, right? So how can we like? I was thinking about how can I bring change. Like I would like to develop a clinic in Manitoba that would have like physicians and doctors working with mental health workers, working with this, with that, like to help so that we're all working together instead of individually trying to make money off of people's problems.
I agree.
Because like if you look at mental health issues, so many of them are both like biological and physical, but like mental, but also like poverty plays a like your you know
economic
it's
class
so
plays,
it's so interconnected. So like I would like to, if you've ever watched the show Grey's Anatomy, there was a spin-off called Private Practice.
Okay.
And they had this building where they had like a nutritionist, like a OBGYN, they had counseling, they had all these things, and they would all work together. And they had a thing where they could share patient information if it was relevant to like their partner. So like for someone with anorexia, for example, that's a mental health illness for sure, but it's also physical, right? So if it gets to the point where they have to be hospitalized, oftentimes hospitals don't know what to do with them.
Right.
But it's a mental and a physical. So like you want to be able to
being suicidal, same thing.
Yeah, suicide is the same thing, right? So like I want to create a system where we could somehow not overwhelm hospitals, but like and not overwhelm because sometimes you don't need a hospital stay. And, like, you just feel like you need a break from life, but you don't want to be in, like, a mental health institution.
And it's not like a crisis center either. It's sort of something in between.
Something in between, but, like, connected. Yeah. I don't know. I figured this is maybe
There's
how
solutions.
I can start.
There are solutions.
See, there's the thing, like, there's the thing, right? A big part of why democracy sucks is because of all the bureaucracy in it, right? Like, all of the steps and ladders you have to and hoops you have to jump through to actually get something done. You know what I mean? To pass a bill, it's got to go to Congress, then go to through legislative, then go to Senate. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, what the hell's going on, bro? Like,
it can take years.
Like, yes,
it's money. It's like how much money are we gonna lose?
Yeah, and so it's like there's the thing, right? Like we live in a society where it's like society is outdated, our systems are outdated. However, to update and upgrade our systems, you know what I mean, it takes such a long process. Right. And then you have people, right, instead of our politicians actually working for our best interest, they turn real life situations that affect real life people and they turn that into political talking points. You know what I mean? They make it into debates, you know what I mean? They make you pick a side, left and right, you know what I mean? Instead of actually you know.
That's what I found with psychology too. It became political. It's all about politics.
Yes, you know what I mean? J. Cole has this beautiful line, right? He's saying, right, they want me to vote, bitch, it's 2023, I should be able to vote from an app on my phone. You know what I mean? Like actually like for like his point is like, you know what I mean, let's say we have different topics, like for example we have mental health, we have healthcare system, and we have education, right? Like on each of those topics, right, each politician should have their view on each of those topics. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a partisanship. For partisan, that means like you stand with all your party beliefs. You know what I mean? You stand with your ideology. It shouldn't be like that. You know what I mean? Because then what we're inevitably saying is that people are one-dimensional. People can only have one like way of thinking. You know what I mean? Like what we're inevitably saying is that if someone is pro-gun choice, you know what I mean, they can't be pro-life at the same time. You know what I mean? That's what we're saying. You know what I mean? And that doesn't make sense.
It's so annoying. It's like if you're liberal, you can't be conservative. What if you have liberal beliefs and conservative beliefs?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what if you want a little bit from
bit of a mix? Like, it's hard to be, like, it's like, being in an extreme in anything usually isn't, like, so many things are on a spectrum, right? And, like, politics is a spectrum, right?
It should be.
You can be extreme on certain issues, or you can be kind of in the middle, but, like, the way they make it, it's like, it's difficult. You gotta pick.
You gotta pick. Yeah. And it's like, and that's the big thing in politics. Like, in most countries, there's only like two sides, two parties. You know what I mean? Or two major parties. You know what I mean? At birth, it's like Canada, where there's like three. You know, you have the liberal, you have the NDP, and the conservatives, right? But even then, bro, like when you have two options. Those aren't options. That's an ultimatum. You're being told to pick left or right. Those are not options. You know what I mean? And once democracy is no longer about options, it's not democracy. You know what I mean? So that's why I say the democracy we live in right now is not democracy.
Well, and it's not serving. Like, if you think your government is there to help you, you're kind of, you know, behind on the times because they're there to serve themselves.
Absolutely. You
know,
people.
That's what I don't like.
Not to say that the people that are parts of these organizations aren't trying to help people. The people, but
it's the system itself.
Organizations, companies, their whole purpose is to make.
It's money. Like looking at the police, right? People are like, "Oh, not all police are corrupt." Absolutely not. You know what I mean? But it's like in the police system itself, bro. They treat themselves as their own citizens. You know what I mean? Like they tell you like your policeman comes before your own family.
Because if you
shoot, know what I mean, right?
If you shoot, I was learning this in my religion class actually, that for at least in the United States, where versus like, okay, so let's say you kill a regular citizen, it can be homicide, manslaughter, whatever. But like in 132 countries, they have the countries that have capital punishment. If you shoot a police officer, it's automatic capital punishment, right? Like death penalty.
Yeah.
So then it is saying, like, are police officers now
more
valuable than the rest of society?
Yeah.
And imagine how many of those cases were, like, in self-defense from corrupt police officers.
Right?
Yeah.
That is insane.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying, like...
You know what I mean? So it's like, even as like one policeman, you know what I mean? Like, if you try and make a change, you know what I mean, you get cock blocked, you get black, you know what I mean, blacklisted, you know what I mean? Where it's like, you know what I mean, you don't move up the ladder, you know what I mean, or they send you to some remote island in Alaska, you know what I mean? Like,
that's why I didn't want to go the traditional route. I was like, maybe
same thing with politics, right? You try to actually make a change, you're never gonna get anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, nothing. You have to compromise your beliefs. You have to make deals. You know what I mean? You have to accept like funding from people. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's why a lot of people have told me to go into politics. I'm like, I can't do it. You know what I mean? Because there's no way you can be a politician and not be corrupt. There's nothing you can tell me. There's absolutely nothing you can tell me.
That's the thing, though. Good-hearted people that want to make a difference in the world rarely go into politics. And I'm talking about a positive impact on human beings, on individuals, right? Because it's just not a space to do it. It's just the way that it's structured. Again, going back to how we talk about changing these structures takes so long, and it's so slow because it's all these old ways of thinking, right?
Absolutely. It's hard.
And everyone wants to like define things as black and white, left and right, and just label things so easily. Just two extremes. You're either this, you're that.
Right.
If you want to find the dumbest people on the planet, just read Facebook comments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
the comment section on any app.
It never ceases to amaze me to the point where it's almost addictive. I'm like reading, I'm like, how dumb can people get? And I'm like, I want to see how deep this goes. Oh my god, these people are so dumb. It's like, wait a minute, I'm dumb. I'm reading the comments.
Or it's like, man, I thought that way like a year ago.
Yeah. Bro,
man, no, it's wild. Like, university is very eye-opening for me. Like, I'm in 3 courses right now. One of them is religion and torture. One of them is death and dying in the family in Canada, specifically. And then one is, like, just stats for psychology. So in my religion and violence class, I just did a presentation on funeral poverty in Canada. Something I never thought of before, right?
It's a real thing, bro. To buy, like, a tombstone.
It's so expensive.
It's stupid.
So
there's so many, like, unmarked graves without tombstones because it's fucking expensive.
Because
like, $2,000, bro.
Wait,
do you know it's over $20,000 for funerals in Canada?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like,
that's really taking advantage.
They capitalize on grief.
Yeah.
Everything.
Grief.
Grief
and trauma is so capitalized in North American culture.
If there's a market for anything, imagine the ads too. It's like taking advantage of people's feelings. Like you lost a loved one. Well,
Come spend $20,000.
Yeah.
Literally,
don't spend $30,000 on this. Spend $20,000 on this.
It's like, how much do you love your loved one? Do you want to reserve a plot of land? You know what I mean? Like, people actually do that. They actually reserve land for where they want to be buried after they die. And then there's like bidding for it. You know what I mean? You bid how much? You know what I mean? And like, it goes to the highest bidder. Like, that's crazy.
And it's different for everyone. And like, in my class, like, obviously you deal with heavy topics, but like, we've been learning so much about like Canadian policies on these things and like how it's like different if it's a sudden death versus something that's like a medical illness, right? Something that you're prepared for versus if it's sudden.
Right.
And like, it's funny that you mentioned the capitalization because flowers, I thought this was interesting, was flowers back in the day in Canada were usually a sign of a low socioeconomic status because they couldn't afford the tombstone. So they would go pick wild flowers and they would leave it there to mark that this is someone who was loved. But now, flowers at funerals can be like hundreds to thousands of dollars. And it has now become something that was so commercialized, right? They commercialize grief and they prey on people. And like, the things I'm learning have absolutely traumatized me to my core. Sometimes I come home and tell my husband, I'm like, you're never going to believe what I read today. And like, we have these really good conversations, but I'm like, these are things that I never would have thought of if I wasn't taking these classes and like opening myself up to stuff I never had even thought of, or like changing the way that I grew up thinking because I grew up Mennonite, right? So like I thought that's just how the whole world was. Apparently not. So you know, like, it's very psychology is really fun for that because we always have really good conversations in class and like you get to know people and like we all have a story. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And yeah, if there's anything to take away from this besides that, everyone has a story, and if you are struggling and need help, sometimes you have to go find it. But just the thing you have to know is that it's there.
It's there.
It's just not always offered.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Sometimes it's there. Sometimes you have to find it.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you can't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But as an adult, as a teenager,
Yeah.
even as a young teenager, these are things that you can know. You can understand that there is help out there, and you can find it.
Well, and the world is
You know what
changing.
I mean?
Like, when you and I were kids, like, you couldn't just pull out your phone and go on a texting helpline. Like, Better Me for mental health. You can't just text a therapist.
Do you remember dial-up internet?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was
I
crazy.
remember
That sounds like a fax machine. Whenever you
Yeah,
connect
yeah.
it.
Oh, I also remember the original fax machines,
It
too.
takes 3 minutes to connect to the internet. It feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
And then it's like making all the beep, beep, beep.
Yeah.
We're talking about,
Yeah.
That I remember.
we're
Oh,
talking
my
about
goodness.
megabytes per second. We're talking about bytes or bits per
Oh,
second or whatever the hell it was. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It was
Like-
slow ass internet. That's what it
Yeah.
was.
Well,
It was so bad. But, like, back in the day, you couldn't just pull up, like, be like, what are the mental health help in my area?
Right,
Now
yeah.
you can Google it, and you
Yeah.
can have
Yeah.
resources that are paid,
Yeah.
or there's, like, lots of not-for-profit
Psychology
places.
today.
even
Psychology
to add to that, like, you know what I mean, like, I find a lot of people, a lot of people on social media, but they be using it for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean, like you can go on TikTok and literally there's whole pages dedicated to any topic you could think of, like any, you know what I mean, right? Instead of just randomly scrolling, why don't you be like, let me learn about mental health today. Let me learn about STEM today. You know,
That was
Let
how
me-
I diagnosed myself
Yeah.
ADHD.
Right.
And, like,
Oh.
maybe on the autism spectrum. Because I
Right.
started going on autism TikTok,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh man, I relate to way too much of this.
Yes.
Me too, and
Yeah.
I joke about it, and sometimes I see people joking about it on social media,
Yeah.
and people in the comments getting offended, and I'm like, shut up, we can joke about autism, like,
We can-
everybody, literally everybody is on the spectrum, like, it's
And
not,
like, it's because
a
it costs money to get diagnosed,
Yeah.
okay? Not all of us have the means
Right.
to get
Facts.
diagnosed.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
But it's like,
It takes
so-
time and money
Yeah.
in Canada.
But like I wanted to touch on this point, before we move on to our last topic here. But earlier, when you were speaking, Austin was talking about how, he's very like just maybe impressed isn't the right word, but like kind of like taken back by just how comfortable, you are about having this conversation. And for me, that shows a lot of not just growth and healing, but for me, I'm a very like neurological person. You know what I mean? Like that shows a lot of maturity, a lot of like brain development, a lot of logical thinking. Prefrontal cortex. You know what I mean? And I was just want to ask you, do you have any advice for people on how to get there? Because a lot of people who go through trauma, you know what I mean, are often stuck in a state of like fight or flight. You know what I mean? Where it's like, they're either living in like manic depression or like they're living in like extreme ADHD. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean, and all of those are just like overstimulation of emotions. You know what I mean, of neurons firing. You know what I mean. So how do you get from being impulsive, emotional, reactive person to being a logical, wholesome, like self-aware person? Like how do you learn to self-regulate? How do you learn to heal? How do you learn to be okay speaking about this?
That's a good question, because it's funny because a lot of people from our generation, our parents' view on mental health was very different than how our generation views it. So like we're very open with these kind of conversations, but our parents, or at least my parents in particular, came from the generation where ADHD was not a thing. Mental health was not a thing.
Yeah.
Therapy was laughed at.
Yeah.
Like it was not something that you were proud about. Like
even to
you
this
see
day, like,
on
it's
TikTok-
changing, but it's like, you know what I mean, someone
It's
like they still call it the loony bean, you know what I mean? Like, you're wacko, you're
those
crazy.
things were very serious. Like what people suffered through was very, very serious,
Yeah.
and women especially. And something that I've learned recently is men's hormones reset every 24 hours, but women are on 21 to 28 day cycles, right?
Yeah.
So women were often deemed hysteric back in the day when really it was just our hormones or
Yeah.
stress,
Yeah,
or undiagnosed ADHD.
Right.
But one of the reasons, like, one of the biggest things I've read, one of the biggest hurdles is stigma still. Even though mental health is very talked about, almost over talked about, and like Austin was making a comment about how like, oh, everybody could be on the spectrum or everyone this, like, absolutely. But it also takes a lot of courage to think maybe I could be, because a lot of these things were deemed very unemployable, very out of character, very like you're not gonna amount to much, or like it's not something to be proud of, or it's not something to own, essentially, back in the day.
Not even something to say out loud.
For me it was very healing because I knew that it stemmed from my birth mom. So, like, I tell people, I'm paying her consequences. So she did the actions, but I'm the result of her actions. So half of me can blame some of the stuff, like my medical stuff, and some of my mental health. Some of it I can attribute to what I went through. But some of it is also recognizing that you do grow up. I was given a second chance. I was given amazing parents, but at the time, my parents were not very strong on mental health. So it was a journey I had to walk myself. I knew I was different. I knew I had experienced trauma. I knew that my brain was very different from my family and from the people around me. So I knew there was something, I just didn't know what. It took a really unhealthy relationship in my 20s to push me to go to counseling for the first time. And before I got through the U of M, I actually went to a psychiatrist and asked to be assessed for different mental health things. I wanted to know if there was, full disclosure, I wanted to know if I was borderline personality, bipolar, or things like that. I knew I had trouble with my emotions and emotion management and emotion regulation. I just didn't know why or how. Where do I fall on this? So at the time, I was diagnosed borderline personality. And everybody's experience with that is different. Now I believe I might be misdiagnosed. But at the time, it was very healing. Because I was like... It's kind of like someone who knows there's something wrong with their body, and then they get diagnosed with cancer, and they're like, oh my gosh, I knew. You
get that validation.
You get the validation. You're like, there was something there. I'm different. But when I went to therapy through the U of M, and I saw my counselor, she's like, Amber, I don't think you're borderline. And I would argue with her on this. And I was like, if you talk to my parents, absolutely. But now that I've done research, and now that I've been talking with her and stuff, I think I'm more undiagnosed ADHD, and I think I'm on the autism spectrum. But for women... because of our hormone cycle, we're more expressive, we're more emotional. It's just a thing.
She said it.
I'm saying it coming from a female. I believe.
Before y'all try to cancel us,
before you cancel me, I do believe there are gender differences in our brains. And I do believe that women are socialized differently, and we are socialized in a way that it is acceptable for us to have mental health issues, and it's acceptable for us to seek help. In Canada, specifically, I don't think men are socialized in the same way, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, coming from a third world country that's very, like, patriarchal, like, it's like, men don't cry, you know what I mean? Be a man, you know what I mean? So
be tough. Yeah, what about you, Austin?
I've always found it very easy to be vulnerable. I actually just started therapy a couple months ago for the third time. This is my third therapist. It's not a big deal. For me, it's never been a big deal. I had a very nurturing upbringing. The one thing for me though was I lacked a solid father figure, not completely, but there were periods where there may have been a father figure in my life that wasn't necessarily, that I didn't view as a father figure, that wasn't acting as a father figure. So like things like things like dating as a man and like the responsibilities of a man and stuff like that, things that I really took a long time for me to learn that I struggled with.
Did you have a dad who taught you how to shave, taught you how to drive?
Yeah, exactly. No, none of those things.
Me neither.
Right? Like, they don't. Like they did. Like I had to figure these things out on my own, and so now I am a person that figures things out on my own, which I'm grateful for.
We love that.
We are paying the price of our dads.
Yes, you guys too.
We're breaking generational trauma.
Yeah.
We left her out of the
Sorry, we're having a guy moment.
No, but like we're socialized different, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No.
And like I want to talk about this all night, but we will have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna check really quick.
Yeah. If we have enough time, we should talk about marriage.
We are an hour 20.
Oh,
So
that's it. That's it. It's a wrap.
this is our longest one yet.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I want to keep going.
We
So,
gotta bring you back because I want to keep going and I want to dive in on more stuff.
We will definitely have to have you back.
Yes.
The things that we talked about tonight are very interesting and riveting, and I've really enjoyed all the podcasts so far, but this has just been different because with our other guests, they've been music artists.
Yes.
So we do talk a lot about music,
Yes.
which I always love talking about.
I wanted to bring something up that you had said actually that I listened to today when I was listening to, I think it was part 1 of your podcast or part 2.
Vital, yeah.
You had mentioned about your lyric writing, talking about, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but about how you wanted to grow in like telling a story.
Yeah, I want to become a better storyteller in lyric writing.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that resonated with me because as a kid, when I was going through so much, music was what got me through it. As you both have mentioned, music can be a form of therapy, right?
Yeah.
Like it is like it's a way for you to deal with your own traumas, right? Through storytelling, through writing.
Yeah.
But it can also, as a listener, it can be like, oh, someone else has gone through something, right?
Yeah.
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah,
I really liked when you guys were talking about the music side of it. Like,
Yes.
I would love to know more about what it's like to be able to write songs. Because,
Man.
I've gone through experiences, but I don't know how to write about it.
But this the thing. Okay, I find like there are typical like 3 type of artists. You know what I mean, there's the artists who like just like grew up and like love performing, love being on stage, love having a mic in their hand. You know what I mean, right? And then there's the artists who kind of grew up like writing poetry, you know what I mean, writing skits, you know what I mean, stuff like that, right? More creative and less like performer, you know what I mean. And then there's the artists who over time chose to go into art because they felt like they had a story to tell or they had something to offer, you know what I mean, right? And I find that, you know, what I always say about music is like, for me, music was the big brother I never had. Music was the present father I never had, right? Music was the uncle or the good role model man that I never had, you know what I mean? Right? Music was the best friend that I never had, you know what I mean? And sometimes the girlfriend I wanted, you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
Right? You know what I'm saying, right? And all of this, right? So listen to all this music, like, gave me comfort. It gave me, you know, where I felt very, like, neglected and alone, you know what I mean? Music was my happy place, you know what I mean? And, like, at first, writing was, like, therapy, you know what I mean? Just putting my thoughts out onto paper. But then it became powerful when I realized just how much other people can relate to those thoughts. Same way that I could relate to other people's music. You know what I mean? I realized, oh crap, this is the power I have now too, that other people can relate to my song. You know what I mean? Right? And it becomes a bit of a struggle because then, you know, you want to keep that authentic part of yourself, but at the same time you want to relate to as many people as possible, right? So it becomes a balancing act sometimes, you know what I mean? But yeah, in terms of the music side, that's how I view it. I view it as 110% therapy, but it's like, just because it's therapy doesn't mean it always has to be like serious or deep or real, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes therapy is just like dancing in your living room, you know what I mean? Looking crazy or just laughing hysterically for no reason, you know what I mean? All of that's a therapy. So it's like, I mean, like, that's why I love all form of music expression, whether it's like punk rock, you know what I mean, or like screamo trashy, you know what I mean, or like hip hop, you know, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean, because it all like expresses a feeling, a moment in time, you know what I mean, a memory, you know what I mean. Yeah.
We could almost do a whole episode on the psychology of music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot there.
Yes.
Like
That would be a good crossover episode where we give our perspectives on music, you give your perspectives on psychology, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And like
Right.
how it intersects, because a lot of people are coming up with music therapy now, and it is actually a branch of therapy.
And they're gonna start teaching that in school soon.
Because for those that don't know, there's a branch of psychology for music therapy.
Yeah.
But like, I do believe that content creators like you guys giving people like me and other people who have stories to tell a platform, I believe that is how we're going to change those systems that seem impossible to change.
I think so too.
So, being a guest on here, I just wanted to thank you guys, because I was like, I'm nobody who's going to listen to me, but maybe someone will hear this and
they will.
they'll realize that there is support out there. There are lots of local local supports, I can always give you guys some stuff to post if you wanted to post some supports.
Yes.
Sure.
I have a whole list of resources good ones.
Yes.
Let's absolutely do that.
If any of your listeners are struggling with anything, there are lots of local and provincial supports that I have access to, so I can give you guys those.
When you get your BA degree, does that mean you could now be a practicing psychologist? Could we now recommend you to people?
I wish. No, unfortunately, in Manitoba and Canada, I would have to definitely go for grad school. So I'm actually looking into my options right now. I am looking at
Are there certifications you could do? Because I know just like setting consultant certification.
Right now, it's looking like I might need my master's of counseling. It's looking like... I know back in the day you didn't need it, but now it's looking like you need a master's. I can get back to you on that, though, because I'm still... I wanted to have an appointment with career services through the U of M to see first, and then I can get back to you guys on that. But I would love to come back and talk more things.
For sure.
I think... It's not always, people don't always know, and even if there are fellow university students, they don't always know what their university offers.
Right, like free therapy with your tuition. I used to go to U of M, and I never knew that.
Right?
I never knew that.
Mm-hmm. And it's for international and domestic students, by the way. So.
Yeah. Well,
shout out you.
Thank you so much, Amber, for sharing all of this with us. If you'd like to have Amber back, let us know in the comments. We're going to have her back either way, but you still have to let us know.
We just try to include in the process.
I feel like that should always be our outro. Like this running joke. Like, if you want this person to come back, let them back. We're going to have them back anyway, but just let us know that just let us know you love them.
Show some love, you know what I mean? Some hearts. Real talk though, we always do this when we end our conversations. You know, we ask our guests, are there any extra, anything we didn't cover, anything that you'd want to add, any questions you want to ask us, any last thoughts, remarks?
Oh man, we could be here for hours.
Yeah, we could.
Not at the moment, but I definitely want to come back because I feel like even like you guys can ask me questions, I can ask you guys questions. One time, just as a little ending joke, when I first met my husband, when we were early dating, I told him that I could assess his entire personality by just looking at his bedroom. And he was like, ain't no way.
Right.
He's like, you don't know me that well. I was like, watch me. And he's like, okay, assess me, Amber. And so I was like, okay, leave the room and let me see your bedroom. And he's like, okay. So I did, and then when I read it to him, again, this is when I didn't know him very well, he was really shocked at how accurate it was.
Right.
So
she was like, man, you're dirty.
Never! but like...
I see a piece of sock over there. Like, that means your woman did it.
I can definitely do a marriage podcast, episode 2.
Yeah.
Not that I'm an expert, but... Shout out to my husband.
That's a perfect.
We love him.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, show some love to our many platforms.
All the links attached below. We appreciate you all.
Peace and vibes.